In this video, I'd like to look at an Android app that uses a countdown timer to simulate the rolling of a die. The code can be found at the URL seen here. So we have in this app just a button that says roll and an image view with a picture of a die. And then when we hit the button roll, the image changes based on a random number many times, and then ultimately stops and then allows you to roll again. So you'll note that the button is disabled while it's rolling. Then when it stops rolling, it becomes enabled again, and you can roll the die another time. And then we have a little toast down here that tells the final value. Okay. So the layout, there's not much to the layout, just what you saw, the image view and the button. Then here, the main activity. I have a global variable for the die. I'm not going to really use it as a global or class level variable, but if I wanted to sort of remember the die value, say if the user paused and then resumed the app or something, if I ventured outside of onCreate, I might want to remember the value. That's why I sort of declared it at this level. And I initialized it to 0 just to give it some value, obviously not a proper value for a die. Connect to the interface, the button, and the image view. And then here is the button click event. Okay, so the first thing we're doing inside the button click event is disabling the button so that the user can't click it. So we're going to start this timer, a countdown timer. It's going to be in play for a certain amount of time and then stop. And we don't want to end up with multiple timers. So we're going to disable the button so that they cannot click it again and start other timers. So all the timer stuff is declared, instantiated, initialized, what have you, all here inside the button. And so if we were to hit the button and if the button were not disabled, and then we could make, again, multiple timers, one for each click event, but we want to prevent that. Okay, so hence the disabling of the button. Here is the start of our timer. It's known as a countdown timer. And there are sort of two times. There is a repeating part and a sort of once and done part to this timer. And so the parameters here are two values. The first is sort of how long this thing is going to be overall in play, and it's a number in milliseconds. So this is 2000 milliseconds. Millisecond is 1,000th of a second, so 2000 milliseconds is 2 seconds. So that button should be around doing its thing for about 2 seconds. 1001, 1002. Okay. Then the second parameter here is how much time goes before the repeating part. So there's a repeating part and a once and done part. So the once and done part took 2 seconds. The time between the repeating parts is 1/10 of a second, 100 milliseconds. So this should, it can depend on how long the code that you have in the repeating part takes. But if it takes less than 100 milliseconds, then it will repeat every 100 milliseconds. So if that is the case, then that it takes under 100 milliseconds, then there'll be about 20 rolls of the die when you click the button. Okay, so there's the repeating part and the once and done part. I want to have my variable. This is a local variable. I have the the global class level variable to remember the value, but I also have this local version, and I wanted it to be accessible to both the repeating part and the once and done part. So I declared it within the countdown timer, but not within either particular method. Okay, so onTick is like the ticking of a clock. It's the repeating part. And as we say, it's supposed to repeat about every 100 milliseconds if possible. So we're using Kotlin's random to pick a random number between 1 and 6 and assign that to the variable die. And then concatenate the word die and that number. So we have over in drawable die1.gif, die2.gif, etc. And remember the .gif is not part of the resource. So here's the resource name die and then the number. And the number was between 1 and 6. So it's one of these resources. It's a drawable resource. And so we're getting the identifier and then we're putting it into the image view. So that is rapidly changing the image of the die that we saw. Okay, so that is the repeating part. Then the once and done part, when the 2 seconds goes by, I'm going to set my class level variable to this local variable die so I can remember it. I'm toasting it out, and then I'm re-enabling the button so that I can roll again. So this is all defining the timer. From 33 down to 48 is defining the timer, but nothing happens if I do not start my timer. So down here in 50, my timer.start to start the timer. And then we're at the bottom of the click event. And that's what I wanted to show you, this countdown timer with its 2 parts, the repeating part and the once and done part. You can use it if you only want the once and done part. You can use it if you want just the repeating part and put a very large number here in the future, or sort of have it restart itself, when it finishes, have it sort of restart itself. So there are ways to sort of, if you want only the repeating part or only the once and done part, just sort of leave the method that you're not interested in blank. But in this particular example of rolling the die, I wanted both the repeating, changing the value of the die to give the user the sense that the number is that the die is being rolled and it's being changed, and it's changing, and then finally to stop the roll that finally lands on a number, and that is the number for that turn. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. Thanks for your attention.